is one way. Any of you done any psychometric testing? Yeah, where you tick all the millions of little boxes, yeah, and they tell you what your personality style is.
Okay.
Okay, so there is a very easy way to do this, and it's very easy to pick people's buyer styles and build a relationship with them so you can sell with them the way they wish to buy, looking at if they're fast-paced or slow-paced, if they're task-focused or relationship-focused on the other axis. So there are basically 4 types of people in the world, regardless of what psychometric test you use, and we don't use any testing in our training, well, we can, but we prefer not to, because you need to be able to pick someone as soon as you speak to them on the phone, as soon as they walk into you, as soon as you have that first meeting. So there are 4 types. There's a director style, fast-paced, task-focused, bottom line, control freak. If you have an opinion, I'll give it to you. And that's how they like to buy.
Isn't that you?
Yeah. They're my favourite type. And that's the way you sell to them. You know, you don't waste their time, you be on time, you do what you say you're going to do, and if you break an agreement, you're wiped forever. Socialiser type, fast-paced, relationship-focused. These are the people that like to party, like to do business at the pub, they will trust you if you have a good relationship with them, and you stroke their ego, you give them credit for their abilities and their intelligence and their ideas, and you do that part of the relationship building with them. Then there's slow-paced and relationship-focused people. Now, these are called relators. These are the caring, sharing people that, you know, you need to focus on the environment, the children, the family, how it's going to help everybody. And you deal with them through a relationship of trust is big for these people on a very personal basis. These are the people, when you arrive at their office, they have a copy waiting for you. And if they have children, they would have got photos and had them ready, you know, to make sure that you're feeling welcome, etc. Anyway, that's it. The last type is thinker, slow-paced and task-focused. These people are very analytical. They like the detail. They like completeness. They like a very detailed proposal. They like to know all the information. They'll go away, make a spreadsheet, compare everything, and come back and check to make sure you were right. And these people tend to be in various, you know, you can pick by the way, how fast or slow they speak, whether they focus on the task or the relationship, what sort of professions they're in, you know, as far as jobs they have, what sort of clothes they wear, what sort of car they drive. You can sort of basically put them into the 4 categories, and knowing what style you fit into yourself, like me as a fast-paced, task-focused person, if I come across like that to a slow-paced, relationship-focused person, they're going to think I'm obnoxious.
Scare the hell out of them.
Yeah, basically. And if I have one of those sorts of people dealing with me like that, I'm going to go, oh, well, this person is so boring. Get them out of my way. So it's knowing what your own style is, and be able to pick the person that you're dealing with, or the people that you're dealing with, being able to pick their style so you can modify your own behaviour to be like them, so that then they like you and then the trust will grow. So that's a basic thing that we have in our everyday life, as well as throughout the sales process. Once we do that and we understand the trust, then it's moving into the questions. And unfortunately, the old Pareto principle, and we know what the Pareto principle is, 80-20 rule, 80% of people fit into one of 3 categories generally, and they tend to be a product peddler. And I'll tell a little story. I went into a shop to buy my dad a television. I don't know if you've any experienced this before. You know, created through advertising. I was very aware of it, seen the ads in the newspaper, etc. I walked in and I said, I want to buy a television for my dad. And they said, yes, we can help you with that. We'll definitely do the best deal for you. And he said, let me show you some of our televisions. So he went to the beginning of the row of televisions and he started telling me all about this television and how it worked and all the controls. And then he moved to the next one. And then he moved, and I said, oh, look, and I could see the great big long line of televisions stretching out. And I said, look, I just want to think about it. And all I wanted to do was buy a television. Now, what he didn't do was ask me questions. And it's questions to build rapport, questions to determine their needs, and questions to disturb them to the point where they say, what have you got that you can help me with? And 30% of the sales process is around the question asking phase. So before you talk about yourself, your product, your company, 70% of the sales process is focused around who? Your customer, because they don't want to know what you have to offer into. So it's becoming interested before you are interesting, so that then and it's knowing what questions to ask. So having a list of questions that are suited to your prospect or your suspect, and depending on how they've come into your business, so that then when you present your product or service, you have you can present it specifically based on what they've told you, as opposed to telling them everything whether they need to know it or not. So it just becomes a confirmation. Closing is really just a tiny little part of the sales process, just a confirmation of your discussion. And obviously there are techniques all the way through. So when you get an inquiry, it's particularly like in retail where it's flat at the moment, you've got to make the most of everything that comes in. It's making the most of every single inquiry, the most of every single lead that you generate through these media, so that your client is happy and obviously you're happy then.
So what are some different, because you're talking about rapport and the different personality types, what are some other techniques that we can implement to increase our conversion rates? For example, you said the guy thought it was 80% when it was 12%. How do we get that up higher?
Okay, so it depends how people come into your business, whether they come in walk-in or on the phone. So it is really, which one will I focus on?
On the phone.
On the phone. Okay, so someone's rung you up because they've seen something somewhere and they've thought, yes, I'll ring these people. I've seen an ad in the newspaper or Yellow Pages or whatever it is. And so it's understanding, it's what we... an organisation that everybody knows in the world, and they always deliver a consistent quality of service, of product, and everything that they do. They might not have the best food produce in the world, but whatever branch you go into anywhere in the world, you'll get exactly the same quality of service and product. Anybody know what the organisation is? McDonald's. Everybody knows it. Now, what they have is performance standards. And that is something that we teach, having performance standards in your organisation, so that whenever anybody comes into your organisation, that moment of truth is met with an excellence. So, for example, when somebody's ringing in, and it happens at McDonald's, you smile when? Before you pick up the phone, because people can tell, can't they, whether you're smiling or not when you pick up, whether you're having a good day or a bad day. And I even say sometimes in telemarketing centres, have a mirror on the desk so you can always be smiling. Answer on the which ring. How many rings should you wait for? Third ring. Third ring. If you pick it up too soon, they're what? Not ready. And if you wait too long, they hang up and they're probably not going to respond. So answer on the third ring. Use the correct greeting. Good morning, Top Gun Business Academy. This is Wendy Berry. And how many of you say speaking after that? No.
I know you've told me 100 times.
100 times. They already know you're speaking. And if you ask a child, you say, what's their surname? They'll say, it was Ben speaking. Use the correct greeting. Get their name. Use their name. Ask, how are you today? And that is a courtesy, which is something within our culture that people expect you. So how are you today? And do you notice sometimes, it happened with my brother today. I didn't even ask him how he was, and he said, I'm good, thanks, Wendy. Because people sort of expect you to ask it. It gets them to stop and think, and it's a psychological reciprocity. You extend someone a courtesy, and they are morally, unconsciously obligated to extend you a courtesy back, and that courtesy will be to listen. So, yep, go on. Okay, so you say good morning or afternoon, that's your choice. The company name first. Now, are these people, when they're ringing it, are they in high stress or low stress? They're generally in high stress because they're ringing something unknown, they don't quite know what to say, and generally the first question they ask is, what do you ask when you walk into a shop or you make a phone call? The first question in your mind is, how much is it? Usually, or how, because you don't really know what to say, you don't know what questions to ask. They're in high stress, they're making some phone calls, and your purpose is to lower the stress. So first thing they want to know is warm and friendly tone of voice. They want to know they've rung the right organisation first off. And once that's done, it go from their mind, and then they want to know who they're speaking with. They're speaking with a person, and my name is Wendy. Now, if you give them your surname as well, you're more likely to get their surname, or you might just want to give your first name.
So it's extending that courtesy by saying the full name.
Extending a courtesy. And your name wasn't, if they don't say their name, they might say, oh, hi, I'm Wendy Berry. I'm just wondering, I just wanted to buy a little black dress. Or it might be, yes, I was just wondering about blah, blah. And so, do you mind if I just ask your name? I'm Wendy Berry. Oh, I'm Anne. Oh, thank you for calling us, Anne. So you give them an acknowledgement and a reassurance, thank you for calling. And then the conversation will go on. So it's there's about 20 performance standards that you would go through. So it's asking questions, giving little bits of information, testing their temperature, listening to what they're saying and hearing what they're saying, determining whether you sell something over the phone or actually get them in for an appointment.
Okay, fantastic. Now, we'll wrap it up because we're actually running over time.
I haven't done anywhere near enough yet. There's so much more.
I know. Do we have any questions for Wendy? Ron?
Wendy, how would you rate Telstra
Right.
from Australia or overseas?
Oh, it's shocking. Well, none of us are Telstras, hopefully.
Any other questions for Wendy? Yep. Yep, go for it.
Sure. You were just talking about those offers in the beginning that you have on the website. I'd just like to know, for someone who's a sole trader and not part of a retail company, it's all service based, and often I have actually offered things that are free, and people on a very I'll just take whatever I can society. And you don't get the reciprocation in terms of sometimes they don't even respond. Just small companies who are not necessarily more strapped on cash flow, but with all those decisions, every single decision makes a big difference in your business. And I don't have big budgets to pay with. What if there is something else in terms of offer that can be very genuine? And it's not just a discount because I often think we offer discount to give discount customers. So I just like to know from more bottom line, what kind of offers can I offer?
Sure. Can I ask you a couple of questions first? What type of business are you in?
I'm a graphic designer.
You're a graphic designer. Okay. So do you have any particular area of specialty in what you do?
I specialise in branding and creating identities for companies that are very specifically them and also very specifically their products and services.
Okay, all right. So there's two parts to how I'm going to answer this. The first part is that the website itself, whatever offer you have on there, has to be in the first instance a giveaway or some kind of freebie or some kind of information that they can't freely get. And at the moment, we know that you could probably get any piece of information you wanted to about graphic design, extensive information. So you can't give away information because that's just not going to work. Signing up for a newsletter is the most passive and, worst form of it's the worst form of an opt-in because people just won't sign up unless you have a particular expertise where you can give information. If I know I'm going to get really good information every week, then of course I'll sign up for it. But most of us can't offer that if we're not sort of marketing gurus or sales gurus or so on. Whatever you have up there has to be an offer whereby they would find it compelling, and that's likely to be free, but something that they can use and you can follow up on. Okay? So it's got to lead. It can't just be a giveaway where you now can't contact them or you can't make a connection with this person now. They just take it and run. So that's why we need to capture their details as well, because this is when the direct marketing kicks in. The whole point, as I think I mentioned before, of the website is to capture people's details, generate leads. I didn't talk much about search engine optimization. I will in a minute. So that's the main point. Then the second point is to start communicating with these people. Why are you communicating with them? Because if you think about the hierarchy of the customer, of complete suspect through to, VIP customer who, lets me ship stock to them on consignment every month. There are different layers of permission that you've been able to achieve with your customer base. And so the whole point of marketing to these people is to increase the levels of permission that you have with your customer base, building a relationship with them. That's the only way. You've got to build the trust, and that's not a short-term strategy. It's a medium to long-term strategy. But you've got to move them, and you've got to be very aware of where you're moving them to and at what point they're coming in, because then step 3 needs to kick in if they're a step 2 person, or if they're a step 0, then you've got to meet them where they're at.
And in terms of actually getting giveaways, we can source giveaways from other businesses, can't we?
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be your giveaway. It could be something quite gimmicky. Some of the things that are working really well, and it's the same with ambient marketing and so on and so forth, are things that are quite out there. And that's the beauty of using direct mail and websites, is that it's free to test the stuff largely. Obviously you don't want to make too much of an error when you're especially when you're communicating and engaging people. But you definitely can use other people's products, things that are kind of left of field, like the barbecue with the plastics person. So it really is, who is the target market, who is coming to my site, what are my customer segments, and how do I firstly get their attention, which may not be the web, and then once I've got it, I want to lead them through a strategy where they end up in my communication strategy, because I'm moving them to a predetermined point.
Fantastic. Now, I'm going to get 3 points off of each of you. What are your top 3 lead generating strategies?
For a website, number 1, search engine optimization. Number 2, calls to action once they've got there. And number 3, most important, is your design and copy on your landing page. Within 2 seconds whether a site's going to provide you value, and if you got your, somebody who's learning to be a graphic designer, for example, to do your website, then people know that. You know a professional website when you see one. You know a website that's going to give you valuable information when you see one. The content must be compelling. The headline must grab your attention, because if it doesn't, you're out of there.
Cool, thank you. That's about 10, but thank you. Chris,
I was going to say I've probably got about 20 here. Whilst on that last point, they concluded years ago that people have approximately 1.2 seconds to digest what they see, and if they don't like what they see, they walk away.
Okay.
Which isn't that a frightening statistic? My top 3. USP, USP, USP. Was that 3?
Oh, that is 3.
Okay.
Wendy, your top 3 for converting.
Converting, develop performance standards, know the questions you're going to ask, and know your conversions, I suppose. Know your ratios.
Fantastic. A big round of applause.